Dear students, let's get started. Guy de Maupassant's My Uncle Jules. The author was a brilliant 19th century French writer, widely regarded as a leading exponent of the short story. He was born in Normandy on 5 August 1850, fought in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and to 1871, and then became a civil servant, spending his free time with literary luminaries like Gustav Flaubert, Emile Zola, and Henry James. He was successful in his own time, immensely popular, prosperous, and feted by society. But he was never married, was haunted by illness, depression. He always longed to make literature his career, but the achievement of that ambition destroyed him. Though he was fond of jokes and shocking people, he was oversensitive and often despairing. Guy de Maupassant was remembered as the master of short story form and as a representative of the naturalist school. In this connection, we should know the term naturalism. It is a literary movement beginning in the late 19th century, similar to literary realism in its rejection of romanticism. Maupassant depicted human lives and destinies and social forces in disillusioned and often pessimistic terms. As a great naturalist, he delights in vivid and accurate reproduction of life in his works. He is a master observer of human nature, and his stories display deep sympathy and tenderness. His stories deal with the characters from a wide cross-section of social categories. Though his stories underscore a sense of futility, compassion is never lacking in them. He is often described as the father of the modern short story, a literary form that's more condensed and immediate than the novel. His works was admired by his contemporaries and imitated by those who came after him. Some of the best-known authors for whom Maupassant was an inspiration include W. Somerset Maugham or Henry and Henry James. He wrote 300 short stories, 6 novels, and 3 travel books. In his 20s, de Maupassant contracted syphilis, a sexually transmitted disease that, if left untreated, leads to mental impairment. This is unfortunately what happened to the Maupassant. By 1890, the disease had started to cause increasingly strange behavior. After a gruesome suicide attempt in 1891, he spent the last 18 months of his life in a Paris mental home, the celebrated private asylum of Dr. Spirit Blows. The suicide attempt was believed to be a result of his environmental state. This is the unhappy ending of Restless author Guy de Maupassant. Some notable quotes are: "The girl was one of those pretty and charming young graces who sometimes are worn as if a slave of fate into a family of clerks. It is better to be unhappy in love than unhappy in marriage, but some people manage to be both. If I could, I would stop the passage of time, but hour follows an on hour, minute on minute is second, robbing me of a morsel of myself for the nothing of tomorrow. I shall never experience this moment again." Guy de Maupassant is a novelist and short story writer who specializes in three things. They are surprise, irony, and tragedy. The present story is also no exception. Do you know what irony is? Irony is the conflict between what is expected in the story and what really happens. It takes three forms in language: situational, dramatic, and verbal. In this lesson, we'll summarize and analyze the events in this short story. My Uncle Jules is a frame narrative, or a story within a story. In Maupassant's tale, the outer frame introduces an unnamed narrator, and Joseph Dafford, who gives an old beggar 5 francs. Maupassant's lifetime, this was fairly generous. It begins: "A white-haired old man begged us for alms. My companion Joseph Dafford gave him 5 francs. The narrator was surprised for his act, and then Joseph explains by telling the story about his uncle Jules. My Uncle Jules is the story of a family which builds high hopes around one member of the family. Uncle Jules was a worthless young man who squandered the family property and was shipped up to America. The problem was that Uncle Jules took money from his brother, and the sum of money was important for the family back to home. The family members waited for his return in hour. His story is narrated by Joseph Davros, the youngest member of the family. The main narrative is about Joseph's immediate family and his uncle Zeus. His family lives in Les Havre, a coastal town in Normandy, France. The Davros family is fairly poor, a condition which Joseph's mother passive-aggressively blames on his father. His two adult sisters sew their own clothes, and the family survives on plain monotonous meals. Their meals usually consist of a soup and beef. They never accept an invitation to dinner so as to have to return the courtesy. All the provisions are brought at reduced prices, and narrator used to go through terrible scenes on account of lost buttons and torn trousers. Joseph Uncle Zeus, whom Joseph has never met, has squandered the Davros inheritance. However, he is emigrated to New York and returned to the family twice, explaining that he is doing well and hopes to return to Les Havre one day. He plans to repay Philip, Joseph's father, his share of the inheritance, leaving the family to place all their hope in Jules to secure their financial future. Every Sunday, the family members dress in their best clothes and walk along the docks of Les Havre, watching the steamships come in and hoping to attract marriage prospects for the sisters. Each week, Joseph's father muses how wonderful it would be if Jules happened to be on one of the steamers. Based on Jules' promise of financial recompense, a young man marries the younger sister. The Davros family celebrates by taking a trip on a steamship to nearby Jersey, England. On the way, they observe an old ragged sailor selling oysters to passengers as light refreshment. Philip thinks he resembles Jules, and they soon learn from the captain that indeed he is, and that he's been avoiding returning to Les Havre because he owes the family money. Humiliated and afraid, Jules might ask for their help. Most of the family make themselves scarce so he won't see and recognize them. However, Joseph approaches his destitute uncle, pays him for the oysters, and gives him 10 as a tip. His family is outraged, but Joseph pities his uncle, noting that he disappeared afterward below to the dirty hole, which was the home of the poor rich. Analysis. The story is short and simple, but gives a vivid and accurate reproduction of life. It displays sympathy and tenderness in the story. Among other devices, Guy de Maupassant is known for his ironic plot twists, and My Uncle Jules is no exception. The main irony of the story is that the Davros family consider themselves badly off financially and are counting on Jules, whom they have been led to believe has gone from broke to successful, to improve their lives. The husband of the younger Davros sister is counting on these too. It's the reason he proposed, but an outcome directly opposite of the expect is happen. Dear students, read, analyze, and interpret whatever you can. Will get the different tastes of the story. Thanks.